Good morning, everybody. My name is Douglas Russell, and I am the founder and operator of Shawshank SC here in Mansfield, Ohio. And I felt it necessary today to put out this video in reference to what's going on with the Columbus Crew and the rebrand situation that we have ourselves under right now. First off, I'd like to say that being a fan and then being a supporter of the crew has been an experience that I can't really fathom up until this point, and even beyond this point, because I have been a fan just in general, and then when Save the Crew happened, it kind of kicked into overdrive. I've been like a general fan of teams and sports in my past, like being a Browns fan and being an Indians fan and Ohio State Buckeyes fan. But until I really got into being a crew supporter and digging into the Save the Crew movement, that really brought me kind of full circle into taking a little bit of more action and being more proactive as far as my fandom goes. And when I started Shawshank last year, that's one thing I wanted to bring to the community around here, was to have more community involvement, to really take a little bit of personal ownership in your support of a team, a group, a sport in general. And as angry as we all were a couple years ago with the proposed movement of the crew to Austin, I think it's important to kind of maybe have some perspective today. And it's been a couple days since the announcement, as Thursday the 13th, and it was officially announced on Monday, with the information kind of leaking out the weekend before. I felt it important to put this out to kind of really kind of drag this entire thing a little bit more to the ground, because everyone's emotions has been like through the roof the past couple of days, whether it be happiness, anger, or apathy. It's been in massive abundance the past couple of days, and some of that has been, I want to say, necessary to a point, just simply due to the fact that we have needed to show the front office that we're not pushovers. But then again, I think they would have already known that we weren't pushovers because of the Save the Crew movement. Now, a couple major points I really want to kind of touch on here. First of all, being, quite obviously, if you take a look at the Twitter account, which I run, I'm not happy about the situation, about the rebrand. I had some very strong words, and I stand by those words. I don't believe in the current rebrand as it stands. And that also goes for the vast majority of us out there. Let's just be honest with the situation. We're not happy. We're not even remotely appeased with the type of explanations that we've been given the past couple of days about this rebranding. As a matter of fact, I tried to get more information, and I really kind of put my head out there and started to digest some of the more media-centric things that the team was doing, and quite honestly, I found them to be pandering and to the word I was looking for earlier. Patronizing would be the word, I guess. So, where do we go from here? First things first. This right here is before anything else. This is not an affront from us to the players, to any of the staff, any of the coaches, Coach Porter, or even the people, and these are the people I kind of feel for right now, are the people who are running their YouTube channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and all that. That is one thing that these people did not know anything about this as far as what type of situation they're running into this week. Yes, it's okay for us to have our voices heard, but at the same time, we need to be respectful of the people who have nothing to do with this situation. And even on that same token, we need to also realize that the people who are responsible in the situation still do deserve respect. We can be angry all that we want, but the people who have taken on this franchise for us still deserve a modicum of respect. And I'm kind of ashamed to say that I've heard stories of people not giving these people their due respect. And that's just being honest. The Haslams, Tim Bezbachenko, Pete Edwards, they deserve as much respect as we can throw at them for owning the team as is, instead of just letting this entire thing slip away, which every single person who put their money down to be invested in this team could have done. Let's just be brass tacks about it. They could have just walked away and said, you know what, let the team go. But they didn't. Now, are the moves that they've taken within the past maybe 12 months or so been less than stellar as far as branding and whatnot and certain things? Some of the things we were complaining about on Twitter are a little bit more reasoned and apparent now that we now know what's going on. But that, of course, still doesn't change the fact of the rebrand. In reference to the rebrand, I did read the statement that ownership and front office put out yesterday. I do feel it's a great first step. That they recognized of what's going on. They reached out to the Nordeck, which we here fully support the Nordeck. Not even on, not just on a supporters level, but also on myself, speaking for myself on a personal level, because of the fact that the Nordeca gave me the go-ahead to start this. When I had the idea kind of planted in my head to start Shawshank SC, the Nordeca was like, full speed ahead, we'll support you. And for somebody who, up until that point, was just a loudmouth on Twitter talking trash, to say, we trust you to introduce not only the crew as a team and as a sport, but also the Nordeca as a brand into what could have possibly been a new area or a new avenue, that, to me, deserves quite possibly the highest amount of professional respect that I think I can ever give. So, that's why we support the Nordeca. The fact that the Haslams and Dr. Pete have said we want to take steps to come to some sort of an agreement as to what's going on. And this, again, is a great first step. Now, in taking some sort of a suggestion, I have a couple suggestions here. And I hope that this video in full gets kind of pushed far and wide and pushed as far up the ladder as possible, because I am speaking from a perspective that not a lot of the supporters groups have, in that I am currently working here in Richland County. We are about 45 minutes north of Columbus. We're essentially the midpoint between Cleveland and Columbus, like right off of 71. And I'm working to not only, of course, push the Shawshank brand, but of course push the crew brand, and you know get people invested in the sport of soccer. Because as much as we have here in the United States, there's still a lot more work to be done. Everything from a local level to a national level. And since I do believe we're still the newest supporter group, we might be. I'm not sure if any others have kind of cropped up since we started last year, but I have been working and annoying my friends and my family, and you know trying to get people to take a chance on this sport that I have come to love way more than any other sport that I've ever been interested in. There are people who didn't even realize we had an MLS team, didn't realize MLS was a thing. Even to the people who still ask me if the crew are still moving to Austin. So we're still working to get above treading water on certain levels, and I'm working as much as I can to kind of overcome those obstacles, and I do believe we have the ability to do that here. But I also believe that we need to establish an identity, even more than the identity we already have. So I think, first off, at the beginning of this list of suggestions is to go back to the circular crest. This is a crest within the past 7 years or so, I believe, because I haven't been. I only started being a fan of soccer in general since 2006. I still have a lot of backlog of information as a supporter and as a fan that I have not even gone through. So, um, so in keeping with that, I still kind of have a little bit of freshness of being a newer fan and a newer supporter in my mind. So again, first off, go back to the circular logo. I know it's the relic from the pre-court era, but I think and I feel that the logo is important to the history of our team now, and also that was one thing that you know the team that Precourt brought on did correctly. I feel that that crest represents a lot of what Columbus has to offer, not only to the city of Columbus, but to the league as a whole. So keep the old crest. However, that also comes with a caveat. One thing I brought up on Twitter before this entire debacle started was I felt that if they're going to use that logo, it could be used as the second team's crest. That can be used as differentiation between our first team and our second team, whether it's going to be like just a feeder team or USL team. And if that's something that they want to have and build some sort of a differing identity on, I think that can be used as that. I still think it is possible, because when you really stop and think about it, a lot of what people are angry about is they think that the legacy of the team is being replaced, when what they can do with this logo is add on to that legacy in a more productive way. So keep the old crest. You can still use the new crest, but use it as our Crew 2 USL team. And honestly, call that team Columbus SC. That's the next thing on the list. The Columbus Crew SC needs to stay the Columbus Crew. It's not just a nickname. We are the hardest working team in the MLS, always has been, always will be. And the Crew need to stay a major part of our brand. Because as what they were saying in the press releases about being a global brand, everyone knows what Save the Crew is, and keeping the crew in the Columbus Crew keeps that on brand. The crew is what makes this team, as far as a global brand, a global brand. I don't know of any other team in the world that calls itself the crew. There's a million FCs, there's a million Uniteds, there's a million Inners, there's a million of all these other style of names, but to the best of my knowledge, there's only one crew, and they're in Columbus. Next part of that, and kind of making this a little bit easier, I do think that the front office or somebody in the in management or whatever needs to honestly, bring on somebody from the Nordeca in an advisory position, or have some sort of a supporters advisory board. This mistake, this misstep, could have been averted if the supporters were involved more in this process. I don't know who exactly came up with the 2,500 person focus group, but you also have to realize that the diehard supporters like us, and honestly, I'm guessing too that there are people in Columbus who don't have a brand affiliation with the crew, because there was so long where it wasn't marketed, and then the team was leaving, so people all of a sudden didn't have a reason to care. And some people still have that mentality in their brain, I think, even in Columbus. So having that liaison between the club and the supporters, at least on a more, maybe not permanent basis, or like a quarterly basis or something along those lines, would go a long way in not only rebuilding the trust that most people now think have been broken, but really getting that down and dirty kind of feel for what we are looking for out of the club. Now, a couple messages to supporters. I get you're angry, and honestly, for like the first 48 hours, I was incensed. However, if all we do is act a certain way when we don't get something that we want, the front office will look at us in an adversarial position instead of as an ally. First things first. What I saw on Twitter of people doing things like doxing people, and like I heard somebody throw around that there was a death threat thrown around here and there. That is, quite honestly, there are no words to say how much I disrespect that type of action. There should be nobody in that crew organization, from somebody who's working the turnstiles all the way up to Dr. Peter or the Haslams, that deserve that type of treatment, period. That's 100%. That's being straight up. Nobody deserves that. You need to do better. Look at yourself in the mirror and try to fathom exactly what you're doing. Because all you want is a reaction. You're going to get a reaction, and that's not going to be a reaction you will like. Plain and simple. One thing I am noticing here is people being more constructive after they're getting out their anger, which is great. Keep tagging the Nordeca with that, and let's not just kind of really drag out this kind of anger party. We had those couple of days, but we also need to be constructive and tell them what we're looking for and what we like and the ideas we have. Because if all we're going to do is point at someone and say, you screwed up, you screwed up, you screwed up, eventually they're going to say, I have no chance of making it better, so why even try? Also, for supporters, one thing I'm also noticing, which is actually really good in my opinion, is this kind of coming together and saying, okay, well, let's be constructive and let's come up with ideas. And that's something that desperately needs to happen, not only for this particular situation, but also for community outreach. One thing that some people don't realize is, you know, people are just going to show up to the games and then not do anything else. Um, if you're going to support the team, support the team. Having the mentality of I'm just never going to buy another Columbus Crew piece of merch. I get that, I really do, but at the same time, you're also kind of hurting your own thing. That's not being constructive. And also, in my opinion, now this is a little bit of a different scope on this. I'm a season ticket holder. I get people saying that they don't want to get the season tickets anymore. But again, I think that's counterintuitive. That's not being constructive with your actions, in my opinion. Now, if this was a longer, drawn out type of situation where it was just, I'm going to do this and you're going to like it, then I would be a little bit more on board with that because it felt like we didn't specifically matter. Even though over the weekend and the first couple days, it definitely kind of seemed that way. Now, with, okay, the statement is made, let's move forward. If you can't move forward as a supporter, in my opinion, and then again, you feel free to disagree, but if you can't move forward without giving somebody a chance to rectify a mistake, you kind of have to look in the mirror there, in my opinion. This next kind of part is really just more of a mission statement in a way, and this, in all fairness and honesty, this is directed straight at the top. The past week in this club's history has shown two separate things. First things first, you can't legislate away our identity. We have spent years in doing what other team supporters have failed to do. We have achieved something that no other sports team, at least to my knowledge in general, has ever been able to do in any other sport. I mean, we've seen in the past, over in England, just in the past couple of years, a team lose their team and they were incorporated over like 100 years. That was 100 years of history gone like that. We saw literally the Baltimore Colts leave in the middle of the night and go to Indianapolis, and we lost the Browns. These are all places that had like way more history than Columbus did, sometimes by triplicate. And we did what they weren't able to do. We made our voices heard, and we're making our voices heard now. You can't legislate away our identity as Crew fans. And I'm sorry to say that having the Crew as just a nickname is just not acceptable. Just not acceptable. And I think you guys have realized that now. That our identity is something that we hold really dear as far as our fandom goes. I know everyone's like, well, it's just a nickname. It's just a nickname. For 26 years, the Columbus Crew have been the Columbus Crew. We are not nameless. We're not faceless. We're not a number. We're a group. We're a community. And no matter of sending out Block C logos halfway around Columbus is really going to change that. I really hope that moving forward here, things are going to be much improved. Which, if the management and ownership and front office has given us anything in the general past, you're going to be willing to. And I am excited to possibly be a part of that if any emails should or DM should come my way. I just don't want to be that doomsday voice of saying, well, just screw it all. Because as much as I am a fan, I'm a bigger fan of the community and the people that I've met. And losing that trust with them versus the front office is something that it kind of, like, I don't want to say it breaks my heart, because I mean, in a way it kind of does, because I found the type of community that I really enjoy being around when I'm with the crew fans. I don't have a lot of direct fandom and people that I personally know that are into the same things as me. I'm just being honest. So having this team and having this community with this team is something that in a lot of ways is personally important to me. I identify with that a lot more than I would feel as a Browns fan or as an Indians fan or as a Cavaliers fan. And that's not even getting into, the identity of the logo and everything. So I don't like to see that type of momentum and that type of community wasted. And that's why I think having a positive attitude about this situation is important. I hope that, from here on out, this is going to be a message to every single team in the league that you can't negotiate you can't negotiate our unity. Okay? This team, to us, I mean, I've heard stories of this now running into third generations of bringing kids to the games and experiencing something that their family can enjoy for a lifetime. And now people are saying that they don't want to do that anymore, and I don't want that for anybody. I want every single person who walks into that stadium to experience the same thing that I felt the first time that I walked in there, and not to have it be an adversarial situation. So I want to help this move forward as much as possible. I want to help to grow the game in my community and to help support the crew in my community, because those are the two main objectives that I have for Shawshank. Support the club, grow the game in the community, and help the community. Well, three turns into two, but I think we can do that. So, well, thank everybody out there for watching, and if this gets to anybody in the Nordeca or the front office of the crew, my DMs are always open at Shawshank SC on Twitter. I mean, feel free to reach out at any time. I'm here to talk to work with and not work against. And that's what we should all be wanting to do, is to work with and not work against on this issue, and pretty much any issue moving forward. Because having a relationship with the team directly, I believe, is important. So, much love to everybody out there. Go Crew.